Greetings, and welcome back to Doctor Who Revisited, where I go through every single episode of Doctor Who from 1963 all the way to 2024 and review them. And now we are on to The Brain of Morbius, the episode that infamously became controversial for reasons not technically necessarily the episode's fault, but we are going to get to it eventually. First of all, let me just say this. It is a very dark and bleak episode for sure. It's definitely a rarity among the Tom Baker era. Now, not this isn't to say that the Doctor Who never went to dark places, but this episode just takes it to a whole other level. It's on an extreme level. Now, I did like the episode. I do still like it. I don't necessarily love it, but it's definitely an experience. Let's put it that way. So we're right down back to the Time Lord sending the Doctor on missions again, because of course we are. Of course we do. And what mission have they sent him on? To stop the return of probably the worst, biggest dictator the Time Lords ever produced, until of course the Master came along. But I mean, the Master didn't really take over Gallifrey, or did he? Just yet. Still have a couple episodes later down the line, but I'll say this: I love the design of the planet they're on, Karn. Obviously, Karn has become much bigger in Time Lord lore, specifically thanks to more recent stuff that came out about this planet, especially in the Stephen Moffat era. Sorry, but I love the design of the planet. The planet really does look ancient. It has this history, like there's ancient ruins and architecture. I love the chamber of the Sisterhood of Karn, the Sisterhood of the Flame, whatever they want to call themselves these days. I love the way the whole temple looks, and even the design of the mansion for Solon, I think the guy's name is. I love the way it looks. Looks very medieval. It looks very Frankenstein-ish, and that is, of course, the intention. That is kind of the point. You can clearly tell that the Doctor Who showrunners were really big into Frankenstein back when they were making this episode. I mean, the guy literally has a Frankenstein's monster as a servant. It's basically like Frankenstein's monster and Igor, both in one. And that's not even the real monster of the episode. Of course, the monster is the big man himself, Morbius. But we're not really going to get into that just yet, because, I mean, the conviction that the actor put into Solon's character, like, he's crazy, he's megalomaniac. The Doctor clearly doesn't like him, but he needs his help a couple of times in the episode, and that's what really the dangerous part about this episode. But yeah, so very well acted on the part of the character of Solon. The sisters are also, I really like the way some of them perform. I love the hand gesture of the flames, however they did it, because it's kind of supposed to emulate flames. The fingers kind of dance like flames. I like that. I love the big pointy sticks with the flame on top. Yeah, the prop design really did a really good job on that. And about the Sisterhood, this is another thing that Doctor Who does really, really well, is explaining how certain planets' mythology and belief system can easily be explained through science. This is something that Doctor Who does so well. Like, they believe that there's this ancient flame that's been going on, that's eternal, burning for millennia. It gives them the elixir of life, whatever you want to call it. And the Doctor just explains it away. No, it's a natural phenomenon. It comes from the volcanic activity and from the planet's core that rises all the way up to the surface in that one cave. And the Doctor finds a way to fix it properly for good, so they can continue having this elixir of life and continue existing. Case in point, they're still around by the time of Capaldi's run, like several centuries later. So yeah, I really did enjoy that. I like that. Like I said, I really like the Sisterhood of Karn introduced in this episode, and what this episode added to the lore of Doctor Who, the Doctor Who universe. And that's not even where the buck stops, because we got even more stuff to talk about with Morbius, the brain itself, the brain of Morbius, literally a sentient Time Lord brain communicating through a vast apparatus. And I praised the prop department already. I'll do it again. The props in that one secret room with Morbius's brain in the fish tank, and the big thing with the cords that allows you to carry Morbius's voice, so you can actually hear his thoughts, to hear what he's thinking or saying or whatever. That looks amazing. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The prop department, they deserve all the praise that I can give for this episode, and even the costume department as well. What they did with the actual design of the monster of Morbius, the body that Morbius eventually ends up inhabiting, it looks amazing. I mean, it looks horrible. Obviously, it's a horrific Frankenstein's monster of a monster, but that's because it's supposed to look like that. So sort of like if Frankenstein's monster, sorry, if Dr. Frankenstein made a monster he wasn't satisfied with, then he went and made an even worse monster. That is who Morbius is, and wouldn't you know it, actually has the brain of a Time Lord, and not just that, one of the worst Time Lords to have ever existed, a brutal, selfish, psychotic tyrant, a dictator that became president of Gallifrey and basically went to war with the rest of the universe, so much so that the Time Lords had to step in and depose him. That's how bad he was as a Time Lord. And here's the thing, so we don't really get too much from Morbius's backstory. Everything we know about him, we learn through the Doctor and through history that the Doctor grew up learning and studying. Of course, the Doctor immediately recognizes his face when he sees the sculpture of him, but a lot of what we know about Morbius today kind of comes from supplementary material that came out after this episode in books and comics and Big Finish stories and whatnot. Curiously, never really showed back up again on the TV show, which is a bit odd. I mean, even Rassilon had a few appearances. Even, Omega showed back up again in the Fifth Doctor's era. But Morbius, besides, a few mentions here and there, even in other supplementary material, it didn't really show up much in the show, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, it's a really big chunk of Time Lord lore and Time Lord history, Doctor Who lore and history. Even the Sisterhood of Khan showed back up a couple of times, but Morbius kind of didn't. He was mostly MIA after this episode. So it's a bit disappointing. Would have appreciated a lot more of this character from the TV side of things. But, well, Russell T is back in charge, so maybe we'll see that now with the Shooty Gobble 15th Doctor. But enough about Morbius for a little bit. Let's talk about Sarah Jane. I really do like Sarah Jane's loyalty to the Doctor in this episode. I mean, she gets blinded at one point in this episode. I mean, she does cry a little bit about it, but she doesn't let it get to her too much. She still tries to figure things out on her own. She still tries to walk about and help the Doctor. And I love how the Doctor just abandons his usual visage and just goes into full serious mode the second Sarah Jane is in danger. The second Sarah Jane is hurt, because that's who he is, and that's just the relationship that the Fourth Doctor has with Sarah Jane. All the Doctors, I suppose, but this Doctor specifically, I love. Even though he doesn't trust Solon, he knows exactly what he's got down in his basement. He knows he's not trustworthy, and yet he still goes to him to seek his help because he knows that he's the only one that can help Sarah Jane right now. And I really do love that. I love the Doctor's loyalty to his friends in this episode. But I think, been skating around this for long enough, the moment I think most people want me to talk about the mind-bending scene, the mind-wrestling thing, whatever it's called. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I mean, the Doctor kind of describes it as Time Lord wrestling. You're basically using your own past and your own history, your previous incarnations, as a weapon. And of course, we see previous incarnations of Morbius. We see the previous versions of the Doctor that we know and are familiar with. And then we see faces we don't know, faces we did not recognize. And I'd like everyone to be very much aware of the fact that we see these faces come up after the Doctor. You know, because we see the current face of Morbius, the previous face of Morbius, then we see the Doctor. We see him transitioning from Tom Baker to John Pertwee, Patrick Troughton to William Hartnell, and then we see all these other faces we've never seen before. They come out after the Doctor's faces, after the William Hartnell incarnation, and of course they're all basically just production members from the show. I mean, Robert Holmes was there, Philip Hinchcliffe, George Galacio, Graham Harper, Christopher Barry, Christopher Baker, and Robert Banks Stewart. I think those are all the names, all 8 of them, unless I'm missing a few. But those are basically all of them. And it's kind of, we're led to believe that they're not Morbius, they are the Doctor. They are intentionally letting us know there were previous incarnations before the William Hartnell incarnation that we're familiar with. I mean, the Doctor's already hundreds of years old by the time we meet him for the first time in the William Hartnell era, so clearly the guy has had a life before that. Not to step on anybody's toes here, but yeah. And of course, I mean, they basically just took all these production members that I just mentioned, told them to dress up in the most ridiculous getup that they can think of, that they can find, and just show up for a photo shoot, and they'll put them in the frame in the episode. So they're technically doctors now. Now, of course, this episode has led to a lot of controversy, not because of the episode itself, but because of this specific moment and how it was utilized in another episode. And I think it's unfair to judge this episode based on certain other episodes and other materials that came out after it aired, about 40, 50 years after it aired. But I mean, it did introduce this part of the lore, and you remember that was the intention. If you have grievances over the Timeless Child storyline, I mean, that's your business, that's your prerogative. If you're upset about the Timeless Child incorporating this element of this episode as part of its lore, that was the intention. Don't take your aggression on this episode. If you want to blame Chibnall and the Timeless Child storyline, go ahead, right, and do it. This episode has nothing to do with it. That was the intention. It was all part of the plan. It was planned back in the 70s. And yeah, the Timeless Child itself, the storyline didn't come from nowhere. It was always kind of the plan. Not necessarily that way specifically, but it was always part of the plan. So I don't see why people got so mad over it. But yeah, I think that scene was really good. If you take out all the other stuff that came out after this episode out of it, that scene itself, just the seeing the Doctor fighting Morbius in that apparatus machine thing, was a really good scene, and really kind of helped the Doctor defeat Morbius by the end. Unfortunately, the effect of Morbius falling to his death, it's a product of its time. Could have been done better, unless if they'll make a remake like they did with a lot of other episodes from this era. I suppose it would have looked a lot better. But yeah, that's it for my thoughts on the Brain of Morbius. Let me know what you think about it, and please try to keep any negative comments about the Timeless Child storyline outside the conversation, because we're not talking about the Timeless Child storyline. We're talking about Brain of Morbius. So let me know what you think about the Brain of Morbius specifically. That is all for now. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, everybody, see you in the next episode, which I believe is the season finale. Yeah. Goodbye for now. Hi there. Thank you for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.